Well, it's so nice to meet everybody. Renee asked that I join you guys today to talk about continuous glucose monitoring. So we can make this very interactive. Like I said, I'm with Medtronic Diabetes. I'm going to talk mainly about what Medtronic can offer for your patients. But it's a very exciting time in the world of treating diabetes, because I'm sure a lot of your patients come in asking for these devices. You have a couple different options right now in the market. You have a Libre, a Dexcom, and today I'm going to introduce Guardian Kinect. So you can go on to the next slide. It's a hard thing to treat diabetes. A lot of patients, you have 30.3 million Americans have diabetes, so I'm sure you guys are having a lot of patients, but 40% of these patients that have type 1 diabetes experience hypoglycemia unawareness, and there's a 30% prevalence of severe hypoglycemia. So what we find in aggressively treating diabetes, a lot of patients would prefer to keep their blood sugar high because they're just so scared of that low blood sugar. And unfortunately, it's a tough statistic to see 245,000 patients visit the ER each year due to hypoglycemia. You can go on to the next slide. So I actually myself have type 1 diabetes. I started on a Dexcom in 2009, and then I wear Guardian Kinect now over the past 2 years. Guardian Kinect was launched 2 years ago, and it is a standalone continuous glucose monitor with Medtronic. It is the first smart CGM. What we do best at Medtronic is not only provide the tool, but also the behaviors behind the tool. So it works with Apple iOS device. So this is a picture of what patients would see. They get a sensor glucose reading every 5 minutes. And like I shared with you, the fear of hypoglycemia, patients can actually set up an alert and be alerted anywhere from 10 minutes to 60 minutes prior to a low blood sugar. A lot of your patients probably have type 2 diabetes and are consistently fighting off those hyperglycemia. So you can also set a predictive alert for high blood sugar, and that can be 10 minutes to 60 minutes. What's really nice about this device is the reporting that you get. So all of this information, the 288 readings a day, go to a cloud every day, and then from there it goes into our CareLink software, which provides about a 10-page report of your patient's sensor glucose readings. Medtronic also has another app called Sugareq that helps predict patients' blood sugar levels, along with provide some extra education.
Could you tell them about which iPhone version?
Sure. So right now we are approved with Apple iOS. So a iPhone 5S and above will work with Guardian Kinect. iPads will also work as well. And it does not actually have to be a phone. A lot of patients might have an Android, which we have submitted. We're hoping to have Android approval this summer. And we can provide an iPod Touch, or the patient can purchase a phone. I think Walmart sells them for like $60. So you just need the Bluetooth capability in order to use this. Does anybody have any questions before I move on? All righty. So the reason why we call Guardian Kinect the Smart CGM is with these personalized and actionable tools. We have a patient, actually it's one of Renee's patients, that was having a really tough time with carb counting. So with Sugareq, patients can log into the app and actually pull up. We acquired a nutrition company called Neutrino that you can log in and get the carb count for food, any, Wendy's, wherever your personal food. It's a really nice list of a way to teaching patients on how much carbs are in their food. It also looks at sodium and micro and macronutrients. Sugareq also provides predictive analytics. So it's powered by IBM Watson, so it's the same technology that helps predict global weather patterns are now going to start predicting patient sensor glucose information. So you can see with IQCast, a patient can look and say, in the next 1 to 4 hours, you might have a low blood sugar, and that will allow them to prevent the low. You can go to the next slide. So with these predictive alerts, it's exciting. We've been out for over 2 years. So we actually have real world evidence, and this is from our CareLink reporting. So you can see patients that had predictive alerts on avoided a low 65% of the time. And without the predictive alerts, it was 36%. So it is so important to have these alerts set. And then there was 44% high excursions were avoided and only 11% without the predictive alert. Go to the next slide. And with patients using the Sugareq app, 73% did take action and again, prevented that low or prevented that high. So with the IQ Cast feature turned on, you know, the low episodes per month was reduced. I always like to say, you know, 27% fewer lows per month because of this predictive analytics. You can go to the next slide. And that equates to about 29 fewer hours that were spent in range in a month. So again, with type 2, using these tools and getting the patient in the right, you know, 70 to 180 time in range. You can go to the next slide. So like I mentioned in the beginning, you know, feel free to ask me any questions. It's exciting. There's a lot of options out there now with continuous glucose monitoring. This is not a study that was done with Medtronic, but this is information from the Getting Started guides of Dexcom, Libre, Guardian Connect, and then Eversense with Senseonics. And you can see out of your options right now on the market that Guardian Connect is the most accurate sensor in predicting lows and avoiding lows. A missed hypoglycemia detection rate of 9.5% compared to Dexcom G6, 14% of the time, it did not provide an alert for a patient when the patient's blood sugar was low. And then unfortunately with Libre, it's even higher, almost 30% of the time, it did not alert a patient if their blood sugar was low. And this is the MARD. So we use MARD to measure the accuracy of the sensors. Again, this compares Guardian Connect with Dexcom G6. And overall, we have a 9% MARD. But again, in the low range of blood sugars, Medtronic is the most accurate sensor right now with a MARD of 6.4 between a patient's blood sugar from 40 to 60. If a patient's blood sugar is 61 to 80, 7.7% MARD. And then 81 to 180, 8.6. I shared with you that I have diabetes myself, and quite frankly, I don't care if my blood sugar is 150. I really care if my blood sugar is 50. So it's accurate when it matters most.
We did have a question, if you could explain MARD.
Sure. So MARD is the mean absolute relative difference. So it's the, I guess, how do I explain that easily? If a patient's blood sugar, if you do a finger prick and say that a patient's blood sugar is 200 on the meter, and the sensor is saying that the patient's blood sugar is 180, so that would be a MARD of 20. So you want the MARD to be as low as possible because that detects the accuracy.
So your finger sticks are going to be more accurate than an interstitial blood from the sensor.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's ever any doubt, we usually tell patients to check a finger stick, you know, to see if it matches up or not.
Excellent, thank you.
All right. And again, with Medtronic, we not only provide the tool, but we also try to teach the behavior as well. So over 35 years dedicated to diabetes care and 5,300 employees. So in your area, we have certified diabetes educators that would put on a Guardian Connect on the patient and teach the patient on how to use the device and also follow up with the patient. So we also have a 24-hour helpline and technical support. So I always like to share this slide and when you choose one of these devices, what you get with Medtronic.
So I have a comment there.
Mm-hmm.
So for some of these providers who are all over the state,
Mm-hmm.
do you have, how many reps do you have for the state? And if there is nobody like you down there, frequently, how would we get that information to them?
Well, I can provide my contact information and get you with the right person. I'm not sure how many reps we have, but there is at least one territory manager and then clinical territory manager in like here in West Virginia and Morgantown. There's 3 of us in this territory. So I would imagine where you are at throughout the state of West Virginia, we would either cover some of that or we would get you in contact with one of the nurses. But there's really not any place in the country, even in the world really, that Medtronic does not have care. We also do webinars a lot, especially for this patient population. Some drive 3 hours just to come here. So instead of having them drive here, we can do a webinar like we're doing today.
Yeah, because I think with the rural areas, there's a lot of providers even just like logging in today that is just areas where they're distant. So that would be nice if to be able to reach out.
Absolutely. All right. Well, this slide is interesting too. So what we're doing here at WVU is we actually allow patients to try Guardian Connect, and we can do that for your practices as well. We do have a trial where we would ship the Guardian Connect system to a patient, and they would be able to try the device for 5 weeks. This information is on our website where they can sign up, and they would have to complete a trial form, and we would also need a prescription from you in order to do that.
I have one more thing. Sorry,
Sure.
I keep interrupting.
No, please interrupt.
Remind me on this. So they can get it on their iPhone or mobile device.
Mm-hmm.
Is it also that other people, like if their mother or sister wants to be on there, that they can have access at the same time?
Yes. So
like that, I'll let you answer in 1 second.
Okay.
So that will be a nice option. Like I have a couple patients who, maybe the husband had a stroke, the wife still works. They can't really determine or detect lows very often. And, they'll be able to monitor from maybe at work and be able to call them up or send someone over to help and check on the patient. So that I found that to be really nice in these devices that are accessible to multiple different devices for patient and families.
yeah, I mean, I remember in high school having to go to like the nurse's station to check my blood sugar. Well, now the nurses can just have the information right on their computer. Mm-hmm. So this is all web-based. So patients can have care partners, up to 5 care partners that actually receive text messages if their patient's blood sugar is going low. And then it's all web-based. So you can log on an Android, your work computer, anywhere and follow real time what the patient's sensor glucose is. Mm-hmm. I think that is, and I don't know, do they have a lot of insulin pumps? Should I review that or?
Probably not a whole lot, but yeah.
Well, Medtronic, we dedicated to diabetes care. We have a lot of really, we're the first company that offers a hybrid closed loop system. It's the 670G. So a lot of times when Renee provides a patient for me to get set up, they'll start with a Guardian Connect and then realize that they need an insulin pump, and we're able to just pathway that patient. So it's the same sensor that works with all of our insulin pumps. So there's no, warranty or insurance will allow the patients to get an insulin pump and use the sensor with the pump. So, and I think those were all my slides. But if there's any other questions about Libre, Dexcom, Guardian Connect, I would love to be resourceful. So.
Thank you so much. That was excellent.
Oh, thank you.
And everybody, obviously, we have plenty of time for questions about the didactic, and then, of course, any questions you need to open up.
Hi, this is Jennifer Boyd. Thank you for the presentation. The question here is always, does insurance cover it? And the 3 major insurers would be PEIA, Medicaid, Medicare. Okay.
They do, actually. It's an exciting time. 10 years ago when I got on a device, I paid thousands of dollars, but now it's becoming standard of care. So Dexcom is covered with Medicare. There are medical criteria that a patient needs to prove before Medicare will pay for it, and that typically is testing 4 times a day, and then on insulin injections. So it's kind of silly. You have to check your blood sugar and show that you can do that to then go on a Dexcom and not really have to test anymore. But that's what the Medicare requires. And then Medicaid, same thing. It's very affordable. It's on West Virginia Medicaid's pharmacy benefits. So a lot of times it's 100% covered. And then Libre for the patients that may not have coverage. So Libre is a sensor that in order to get the number, a patient has to wand and get that number. So it's a flash monitor, and the device is disposable. So it's a lot less money to produce. So they actually can provide like a cash price to patients, and it's typically around $70. So
with it's real important for the documentation though, because you have to specifically put in your note, patient checks. You can't even put TID. You have to put 3 times a day, or I think it's 4 times a day, and be on insulin at least 3 times a day. And you can't put checks 3 to 4 times per day. It has to be exact. And then some of them, I think Educator is the one that, and I can't remember which device, that you have to have had those sugars in the chart for like 6 months. It's like really a lot.
well, there's different Medicaids. So like the health plan Medicaid does require a 60-month like blood sugar log. So, I mean, meters now are pretty nice because it stores all that information. So if you could even just have the patient like download the meter, you could probably use that. But that was the health plan. And then there's so many different Medicaids out there. So, but these companies, Medtronic, that's what we do. If you have a patient that you have in mind, then you know, you provide us, we're HIPAA covered, you provide us that information, and then we look into their benefits. And Dexcom does the same thing.
I think too, I usually try to tell the patients, like, if you put the time in now, you're in the end going to save yourself, because if you are willing to check 4 times a day for whatever given time they're recommending, then in the end, you're going to really be checking less frequently. And it's going to not only do that, it's going to take off the burden of checking, which is why patients get burnt out. And also they'll have fewer lows, highs, and just like all the statistics you talked about. But it's, you have to have a patient who's engaged. But I really find that once they get hooked up to one of these devices, I have heard them say it's a game changer. Like, it's a life changer. It really does help them, and it just takes off some of that burden on just caring for their diabetes in and out every day.
Absolutely. I always look at it like almost like a map, right? Like years ago, you had to pull out a map to figure out where you're going. That was almost like a glucose urine sample. That's the way we checked what a patient's blood sugar is. Then you had MapQuest, so that's kind of like a meter. Well, now you have a GPS, which is a CGM, and that is going to tell you exactly where you're going at all times. And it is a game changer to really see the peaks and valleys and get a full picture of what every day looks like. And it allows you to really manage your patient appropriately to have all that information.
Now, I have a comment on that. We had a patient in one of our self-management classes. He's like in his late 60s. He's a farmer. He hated the fact that he had to stick his finger 3 times a day. So his, I think it was Medicare, would not pay because he didn't have to check his that often. He went and bought it out of his pocket, and that's exactly what he said. It's a game changer. Now he just, you know, as he's out, you know, working the cattle or whatever. It really surprised me he got it, but he loves it.
That's great.
Yep.
I usually try to put in the chart note, especially if they have low sugars, because let's be honest, you know, some people have them, but I mean, it can cause a seizure, a stroke. People can die from low sugars. They could wreck their car, they could hurt somebody, hurt themselves. So I really make it like top priority in my notes to put hypoglycemia related to multiple daily injections or insulin pump therapy. So like literally spell it out so that it is really a safety thing for the patient. And a lot of times that will help them get coverage.
He was getting concerned because his average blood sugars were, I think, 115 or something. I'm like, yes, you know, because he was checking it so often.
Yeah,
That's great.
that's great.
Yeah, my best friend's dad has diabetes, and he was in car accident after car accident because of low blood sugar. And the the judge actually required him to get on a CGM, and he has not, the ambulance has not been to his house once since. He's doing great. So, I mean, yeah, this really should be standard of care if a patient's on insulin, is to have this attached and get this information, because all of these low blood sugars can be avoided, and the highs.
And I honestly, sometimes, I hate to use scare tactics, but you know, if someone tells me you get a low, you wreck your car and you kill a pregnant woman or a child, like that sometimes is enough to push them to like, okay, I really need to get this under control with whatever means they need to use. But like I said, these devices are really helpful for it.
I have another question. It's, you know, it makes a lot of sense to me with respect to hypoglycemia. The question is there any, has there been any study or science looking at people who have, let's say, elevated A1Cs due to mostly hyperglycemia, not hypo, you know, you're not worrying as much about hypoglycemia, but patients who have hyperglycemia, that is, that a big contributor is lack of attention to diet and exercise. And so I have patients like that, some of whom are willing to check 4 times a day. They check their fasting, they check before they eat, they're doing a sliding scale, but they're just out of control, and they don't eat in a way that helps their control improve. Is there anything that has shown that being able to see their reading in the moment has helped them change their eating habits and improve their sugars?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, some of the slides that I showed today are just our own internal study that showed because a patient was on a CGM, they avoided, 63% of lows, and I think it was 44% of highs. And that is about 3,000 patients in our CareLink study. The type 1 diabetes exchange group, they have a lot of interesting studies out if you wanted just to Google that. Where they monitor patients from across the country. I think it's 84 clinics. And they just recently published that, CGM has increased, twofold, especially in the pediatric population. And average A1Cs, which they track, I think was around 7.5. So, if you wanted to look at the type 1 diabetes exchange, they have a lot of really good information on the benefits of continuous glucose monitoring.
Great, I just pulled that up. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. I had a patient who was actually on a Libre that was wanding a lot, or I'm sorry, she would forget to wand because with Libre, you do need to kind of swipe through, and I set her up on a Guardian Connect, and I thought, oh, I don't know how this is going to go, because with Guardian Connect, you do have to check your blood sugar. We do not have that indication that if a patient is dosing insulin, it is still recommended to check your blood sugar with this. And the system is all about safety, because it's the same system that doses insulin with our insulin pumps. So this patient, you have to check twice a day, every 12 hours. But anyways, going from a Libre to a Guardian Connect, because it was on her phone and she's always looking at her phone, she changed her habits and she lost 6 pounds in 2 weeks. Her average blood sugar went down 60 points. So again, it was just having that information. Everybody's always looking at their phone these days. So really helped her quality of life.
I think it's just also just feedback, if you're just alone checking more sugars more often, even for years before even these devices came out, just even if you don't really think you're doing any different, people do make changes based on feedback. So if they see, oh, I ate a slice of cake and oh my gosh, look, I'm watching it every 15 minutes and it's rising and that's what's caught, then they maybe make a different decision the next time, like maybe eat half a slice or don't eat it at all. So I do think people make behavioral changes.
Yeah, I learned I could just not eat cereal. Cereal, you go right up and then right down. So when I set a patient up all the time, I say, you might hate this at first because it's going to really open your eyes to what certain processed foods can do to your blood sugars. But it's great to have that tool. I had no idea that I went up to 400 and then down to 80 because I ate cereal. So, and everybody is different. Some people do eat cereal and they're fine. But so
No more Fruit Loops for you.
yeah, no more Fruit Loops. Nope. But I don't know, I'll give my cell phone number if that would be helpful, so I can put you in touch with the right people if you had patients in mind.
Okay, because our pharmacist was wanting to sit in and listen on this today, but she's got a lot of fires she's trying to put out in the pharmacy, so.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I can email over these slides too. And
Thank you.
yeah, and our website is really good too. There's a lot of, we actually have one for CDEs where you could go around, and we also have classes too. So we can certify you on our products. And so if we're not able to get to your office, then we can certify you on how to train patients on our products. And we call that a CPT. So we actually pay for these trainings. Medtronic would pay you to do the training too. So
Could you talk a little bit? I'm sorry. So there was a slide back there where you said that you offer like 30 days with it for a patient, right? How does it work after that 30 days? Could you explain?
if the patient, so the patient can try the system, and we do look into their insurance and see what's covered. So if they would like to keep it, then they keep the transmitter and we just send them sensors. So our transmitter, it comes with a year warranty, and the sensor is worn for 7 days. And then the sensor is taken off and you charge the transmitter. So that transmitter stays with the patient for the whole year. And then you put a new sensor on. So there are ongoing costs with the sensors each month. But like I said, insurance typically covers anywhere from 80 to 100%. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if you guys have any questions, we'll send out the slides for the recap of the session. You guys can definitely see this on YouTube on our channel later. But if you have any other questions, we'll make sure Julia gets them. But do you guys have any other questions about patients or anything else that has come up in our time apart? No? Anything else? Anything fun happening? Thank you again. That was wonderful. I know.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys. Nell is giving, right? Nell is giving the next didactic on March 11th. So we will see you all then.
Thank you very
Nice
much.
meeting you all.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. That was very good. All right.